Hello there, YouTubers. This is Gus Estacio. Yesterday was Father's Day, and I wanted to share something with you. My daughter made me a card, and I don't know if I've spoken a lot about my daughter, but she's absolutely, she's a tremendous person, great Christian, and I'm just impressed at how her intellect is just out of this world. But she's very creative, and this is the card she made for me. Yeah. And I think I've made no bones about the fact that I work several jobs. On the outside, and there goes my government badge because I work in the government, it says, you're a lot of things to a lot of people. And the next part, this is amazing. This is Domino's because I work at Domino's. And so she says, on the bottom it says, a pizza man. This is a picture of a shirt, me wearing a Domino's shirt, which I'm wearing underneath this one right here. And then my night job, I work on the weekends and on the holidays, a desk clerk. So she has my badge to Claridge House that I work at. And then, this is cool. There's a tie with crosses, and as the Holy Bible says, and a pastor, because I've served as a pastor, and I still preach in our church. And then on the last it says, but on the inside you're a father who's made sacrifice after sacrifice to care for his family. I am proud to call you my dad for the great gift of life and companionship your life has secured. And that is the last page. And it's pretty amazing. Look at it. It's very intricate. She worked on it all week long. And, and we were kind of playing along with it. Like, I can be a man. And so, just playing with the different pages. This is what my daughter did. So I'm on my way to work, and I just wanted to share a couple thoughts about not only the card and what an amazing person my daughter is, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the wisdom of experience versus the wisdom of, or I guess, the intelligence of education. And I was watching a video last weekend. It was someone really touting their education. They were touting about, their grade average, their GPA, and their experience in this education. And I'm someone who actually is surrounded around very educated people all the time, so I really don't have anything negative to say about education. I've gone to school myself a little bit. I've never really got my degree, but I have acquired a great deal of books. I read a great deal, and I glean a lot from very educated people. I'm under the mentorship of very educated people that I really look up to. But this person was there to give their education an opportunity as a reason for their experience in analyzing people. And this person touted that they have a degree in sociology and all of this stuff about how they have a high GPA in it and they're really great in class, no doubt. But I know a lot of people who might have master's degrees. I know people who have PhDs. But being educated and being able to practically apply your education is two different things. Just going to share a little something. My daughter, has a very high IQ, very intellectual person. A couple months ago, made a mistake, and I had told her that there are certain things that adults deal with adults and that you should not get involved in. And when she made the mistake, she violated what I had told her, she was really sorrowful about what she had done, and I absolutely forgave her for what she had done, but it was what was happening was the fact that even though my daughter was a very intelligent person, and she's principal's honor roll every year for the last 5 years, she has a very high GPA. She's going to go into college. I have no doubt she will have a scholarship somewhere. I engage my daughter all the time in intellectual discussions. But what happened, the reason for the error was that her education didn't save her. Her intellect didn't save her. She did not have the wisdom of experience. And I've had people say to me, Gus, how come you're not a pastor or any longer, or why shouldn't you be a pastor? And I've made it no bones about it. I have no desire to be a pastor again, because it is a very, very hard job. It is, and the reason why it's a hard job is not that I don't have the intellectual capacity to preach every Sunday, or the intellectual capacity to teach Bible studies. But to be a pastor is more than just having the intellect to teach. It has to have the capacity to do the other things a pastor do. And not many people know really what pastors do aside from teaching. It's not easy. You have to have good temperament. You have to have a heart for people. You have to be able to take it on the chin and keep on trucking. You have to be able to have the experience to give people counsel. There's a measure of experience involved there. Now, in the year and a half that I served as a pastor, I gained a great deal of experience. In fact, I learned so much from it, and I don't even regret being a pastor for the year and a half for what was then a dying church. I gained a lot of experience from it, but I also came to realize that is not something that it would have to have certain ducks in a row for me to actually be a part of that position. It's almost like LeBron James, and someone who's a LeBron James fan or a good friend of mine will probably recognize this. You have to have the right tools, the right team, because you know what you bring to the table, but you got to have also other players involved for you to win that championship. You want the best conditions for success. And so I wanted to bring out this issue of experience. Now, I've been in the countercult movement for 20 years. A lot of things have happened in 20 years that I've been in the countercult movement. And I've been to several churches. I've had different experiences with different pastors. I've had different experience in the countercult movement. I've acquired a certain amount of not only experience but knowledge because of the people I deal with and the people that I've made friends with, and have had good mentorship. And all of that really is not stuff that you can put in a textbook. It is stuff that you learn from experience. And not everyone has the same experience. And so I have benefited from the experience of others. I've benefited from the years I've been out of the Watchtower Society, and I've benefited also from the experience of not being a recluse or not being an insular person. And the word insular comes from the word insulated, and we know insulation has to deal with being inside and restricted and actually just protecting the barriers of the outside realm. So I've been out. I've been in I've had enough experience in different churches, in different settings, in different academia. I've experienced speaking at conferences and meeting people of great intellect, far more intelligent than I am. I'm by no means a super intellect. I've been around super intellects. But also my experience having been in different churches and being in different circumstances, having been a member of a church, and I'm a member of a church now, gives me an experience that removes a great deal of bias. When I came out of the Watchtower Society, I had a great deal of bias. Still had a great deal of bias about churches. I had a real great deal of bias about Christianity, or the identity of what some people would call institutional or organized religion. I had a lot of biases. I remember when I walked into the first church I walked into was actually a holiness Pentecostal church. I mean, really off-the-cuff holiness. And that was something that I learned from as an experience. Another church I walked into and I saw the American flag had all kinds of biases, because my life being in the witnesses was about political neutrality and not being involved in politics. And I viewed having an American flag in a church as a violation of neutrality. Once again, experiencing this and actually having to learn where church and state matters actually conflict and where they also actually meld. I had instances in churches, because I served as an assistant pastor, pastoral assistant, and as an elder, where I learned also the polity of church. That is how churches function. And a lot of things that belied my idea of what a pastor is. You know, the whole idea that churches are money grubbing. And there are churches that are money grubbing. And there are pastors that come off strong on money. And yes, bills have to be paid. But I learned from both experiences and realizing that most pastors actually have very, very little control within the church. Very little. But it's experience. Experience gives you a certain amount of wisdom. Not just intellect, but wisdom. And so I wanted to say my message to those of you today is, yes, get an education. And education is important. But what I saw on this YouTube channel was a person of great education, probably even great intellect, but very little wisdom. The experience of wisdom, the practical application of wisdom, is what really shows a person as wise. I've interviewed PhDs on my program, and I interviewed one guy and great knowledge of the Greek, but during the interview I came to realize that he had very little knowledge of the patristics, what we call the writings of the early church. And that doesn't negate the fact that he's a scholar in his profession. But I'll tell you what else is great about a person who has a great deal of scholarship is that if they're able to convey it practically and without bias or emotional baggage. A good psychiatrist would be a good psychiatrist, not only to his clientele, but even be able to examine members of his family in a psychiatric kind of way and be able to also help them in certain ways. Or maybe his advice would not be taken, but he actually could examine them without bias. And that's the difficulty of a lot of things, is that so many of us in certain professions may have a certain amount of bias and not able to look not only at ourselves and use the very principles that we learn in psychology, sociology, and theology to ourselves or to our family members, and therefore not able to apply practically the things we've learned, and therefore not have real wisdom. A great people that I've had interviewed and people attacked them while I was on the radio program, and they were able to maintain level heads because they had the experience or the wisdom of experience. And that's something that you can't touch and you can't even put in a textbook. When you have experience, you have wisdom, and wisdom applied is being able to practically apply the things, not only that you have an experience, but the principles that you've learned in a way that is balanced and without bias. My message today, for those who are young coming out of the cults, that is, you can even be old and not have experience, and yet you've only been out of the cult for 5 years, and you've been in the cult for 20 or 30 years, and you still have this cult bias. And so I would say, take your time, gain that experience. Don't lead insular lives. Go out and experience the world. Go out and speak to Muslims. Go out and speak to Christians. Go out to a church or even to a mosque if you want, and experience things firsthand and talk to people. Call a rabbi, talk to rabbis, talk to priests. I had a lot of biases when I came out of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Even as a Christian, I had biases against Catholicism. But my friendships within the Catholic Church and my experience in talking to academia in the Catholic Church really gave me different perspectives. Now, I still have issues with some of the teachings of the Catholic Church, no doubt. But now I can examine things without that overreigning bias, that prejudice about Catholicism and Catholics in particular. Because you know what? No matter what, no two Baptists are the same and no two Catholics are the same. You have devout Catholics and you have nominal Catholics. You have devout Baptists and you have nominal Baptists. And the same can be said for any church. You can't judge a book by its cover. You can only judge a book by reading the contents of that book. My little advice today for those of you new out of the cults, or those of you new out of school, before you can give advice, gain some experience so that you can give it practically, not emotionally. God bless you. Bye-bye.